Hello everyone, we're here today with another amazing artist. Everybody, Amelia.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
It's good to have you with us in our podcast. Tell me, Amelia, what do you do musically? How long have you been doing it?
So I'm a singer-songwriter. I play guitar as well. So I'd say I started playing guitar when I was 11, so that's 10 years ago now. I started when I was in first year of high school because I just wanted to start learning guitar. It was kind of something that I was really into musicians at the time who were singing and songwriting and things, and I wanted to be like that. So I started guitar lessons, and then I used to sing along with it, and I was a really terrible singer. Like, I was really bad. So then when I was 13, I started vocal lessons.
Okay. Thanks for being brave enough
to
just criticize yourself. But because I think as a lot of people say, as a creative, our mind is our own critics, right? As a creative person. And we always criticize ourselves. But why would you say that you were terrible? Like, how do you know?
I had no pitch, like I couldn't sing in key. I was really bad, but I just wanted to be able to sing that much. So I started singing lessons, and like my vocal coach, like she's amazing, and I still I work with her now.
Okay.
But she was like, okay, there's potential. But we've just gotta keep working, and that was it. Like I just sang every day constantly until I probably took about 18 months for it to properly click. Yeah.
You were 13 years old.
Yeah, so I'd say I was about 14 and a bit before I kind of thought, okay, this is actually this is paying off now, like the practice and everything.
Okay.
I think because I was playing guitar and singing, and I was trying to put both together at the same time without ever doing guitar lessons or vocal lessons first, that was making it difficult. So I kind of had to just separate the instruments, learn them separately, and then bring them together. And that started to help. I was really unconfident as well. I think that was a lot of it. And then with the singing school, I started to do shows and sing in front of people for the first time. And that really helps obviously boost your confidence. The more you do it, the more you get used to singing in front of people, and the easier it gets. But at first it's scary.
Do you remember the first time that you went in front of the audience, that you went on the stage?
Yeah. Yes.
So how old were you?
13.
13.
Yeah, I was 13.
And what happened? Like, what was going on in your mind, and how did you feel?
So we were doing the singing school that I was at, we were doing a concert, an end of year showcase for the students there. And I sang Riptide by Vance Joy. Okay. So I was playing guitar and singing, and Justine, who's my vocal teacher, she was playing piano. So we were playing together. And I remember sitting there, and I was my mum and dad came to watch, and my sisters, and then there wasn't loads of people there, but it was quite a lot for me, at that time. Sure. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do it. It's just as it got to my knee, but then I got up, did it, and it was fine. It wasn't the best performance I've ever done. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be either. And it was fine. But I ended up, as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, I want to do that again. And it was as soon as I'd done it, I thought, that was something that was interesting to me. It was something that I was passionate about, performing in front of people. And as scary as it was, and it's still, even now, sometimes I'll still get nervous, obviously. But you know that feeling you're going to get once you get started is worth the work up towards it, and that fear of, pushing past your comfort zone to do it. But yeah, it was definitely worth doing, because I don't think I would have carried on performing if I hadn't just started in the first place when I was younger.
You said that you still get that nervous feeling right now. Okay, if you want to compare it, the nervous or whatever you want to call it, that feeling that you feel inside to the time that you started or the earlier stages, how can you compare them to each other? And what would you say? What would you say the reason of it is?
So when I first started, I'd say it was, like I said, it was more of I don't think I want to do this. Whereas now the nerves is I want to do this well.
It's more of an excitement.
Yeah, I'm excited to do it, but I still care about doing well. So even I gig every weekend, but even though I'm used to doing it, it doesn't become less of I'm not bothered. I still really care about doing a good performance. And I think that's what you're nervous about. You want people to see you as a successful artist and a successful performer. Whereas when I was younger, it was fear rather than a bit of excitement and a bit of nerves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. So initially it was fear, but with overcoming those feelings, it becomes an excitement that at the same time that you're looking forward to it, but it's a kind of feeling that because of that expectation that you have in your mind that you want it to be so-called good and perfect and decent, it creates those kind of nerves in your body and your mind. I totally understand. There is a gap between the time that we show interests to a lot of things in life as a teenager or even earlier stages in life, to the time that we realize that this is something that I really want to do. I'm really intrigued to know that have you noticed that turning point in your life that you said, okay, this is something that I want to do because this happened, like there was an event that you went to and you realized that, okay, this is something that I want to do?
I remember, I think I was probably about 16 and I did a competition, a singing competition, which was Open Mic UK. And so I'd been singing for about 3 years at this point. And it was always a hobby and it was always like I did that more than anything. But I wouldn't say that I was like, this is going to be my job necessarily. And then when I did this competition and I was really, really enjoying it, and it was around the time when I was picking my subjects for A-levels and I knew that I wanted to do music A-level. And I was really, really against going to university or anything like that. I don't know why. You
were against?
Yeah, I was at the time. I mean, I ended up going. But at the time, I was like, oh, I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. But then as I was doing this competition and singing, and I didn't win or anything, but as I was doing it, it was just making me think, I love doing this and this is what I really want to do. So I picked it for A-level as a subject, music. And I think as I was doing the A-levels, it kind of clicked that this is the one thing that I love, and if you can be good at something and really enjoy it at the same time, it's worth continuing and worth like pursuing. So I decided to do a degree in music as well, which I've just graduated. But yeah, I'd say it was around about 16, 17 where I thought I don't want to do anything else.
What's the difference between the time that you follow music as a hobby to the time that you follow music as a career, as a profession?
Yeah, I think the love for the music is always the same. But I think when you start to think of it as a profession, I mean, more so now that I'm not in education or anything, it kind of becomes like, okay, this is something I need to make money from, and it becomes a bit more serious then. Whereas whilst I was younger, it's just something that you do in your bedroom. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I would write songs in my room, and now that I'm releasing songs and stuff, you have that pressure of, will people like what I've been doing, because the only person who would ever hear it was me and maybe like some friends and family. Whereas now it's out in the open. It's that, I suppose, pressure. That's the difference of doing it something as a hobby compared to doing it as your profession.
Of course. So you mentioned that back in the days you had thoughts that uni might not be that good.
Yeah.
Right? But something changed your mind. What changed your mind?
A couple of things really. I think while I was in sixth form, obviously everyone is applying for uni and you're very much encouraged to do so. And I think that's kind of why I didn't want to do it, because I had to think of like, just because everyone's going, why does that mean that it's right for everyone?
It was a kind of a social pressure.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I don't think everyone should have to go to uni at all. And obviously there's certain professions where you need a degree for, and if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. But my thinking was more, there wasn't a lot of people I was around who did music, so I didn't know that many musicians. So I wanted to meet a lot more like-minded people. I knew that I wanted to write music and sing, but I didn't really know what career options there were for me. So then I thought, if I go to uni, I'm going to meet all of these people and I'm going to kind of find a bit of a path to go down. So I went for like open days at unis and stuff, and I kind of just realised that the modules and stuff that I'd be doing, it was very varied. It's not just like, oh, you sing and play guitar and that's what you'll do for 3 years. It was all about like the business side of things in the industry. There was performing elements and writing elements, but just loads and loads of different things. And I think I still wanted that academic side of things, because I went to uni of Liverpool, so we still did like essay writing and things like that. And I think it was a bit scary to just completely come out of education. So it just made sense for me to end up doing it. I'm really, really glad I went, because I've met like some of my best friends there, and I've met people, like I said, musicians who I never would have met before, and learned things that I wouldn't be able to do now. Like I wouldn't be able to produce and release music and stuff if I hadn't gone to uni.
So if you want to go into more details and tell us how education helped you to be a better musician, what would you say?
I'd say the variety of things that I got to try out kind of showed me what I did and didn't want to do. Like, I know that I'm not someone who's gonna like write a book on music or anything like that. I still enjoyed I loved English in school and stuff, so I still enjoy the writing side and the essays and stuff. But it was really helpful, like the industry kind of things, like understanding about record labels and branding yourself and the way you come across to audiences and things. I got to do a year's work experience at a record label that our uni was doing.
Wow, that was really good.
Yes, that was really helpful. So like the uni had their own label that we were all working for. So that was really good. And obviously meeting people.
Is this something that Liverpool University offers to all their students?
All music students, yeah. Yeah, so it was called Merciful Sound, still is. So like each year, the new third years will run it each year.
Okay. Did it help you to get a job in music industry?
It's helped me to get experience.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm looking at like applying for similar types of things at the minute, because I've just recently graduated. So I'm looking at that kind of...
What was the title of your job?
Yeah, so we had a couple of teams. So I was in the technology team at first. So it was me and two others. We were like producing the songs that we worked on, mixing. And then the second side of it was like the marketing side. So I was on the social media team for that, which I really enjoyed. I quite like the social media side of things and stuff, which I think is something I would like to go into now. So that has given me the experience to start being able to apply for jobs in that field, definitely.
Interesting. That's one of the things I think is very important. I think as a musician, if you're going to uni, make sure that they do placements.
Yeah.
Because that's a crucial, if you're investing your time and your money in education, make sure there is a placement, because I think it's going to really help you. As you said it yourself, it's going to give you a good experience. You're going to make a lot of good connections.
Yeah.
And it's going to give you a kind of vibe of what the industry looks like in terms of the business side of it. So tell me about your family. Do you come from a musical family?
My dad was musical, so he was in a band when he was younger, called the Miracle Workers.
Okay.
So he was in a band with them. He played keyboard, but it wasn't something that he like carried on with. Like he's got his own business now and stuff.
Okay.
But it was while he was younger, he did that. So I think that was kind of he was always glad that I wanted to do music, because I think he always thought it was a really good skill. My mum and my siblings aren't musical.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they don't sing or anything like that, but they've always been very supportive of me doing music. Definitely.
That's actually my next thing to ask. So how was the reaction, like, from the time that you showed some interest toward music? Did they say, okay, great, music is great, but get a 9-to-5 job, like, alongside as well, or...?
I think it was more, so while I was doing A-levels, as I got more towards that, I was initially considering, like, do I want to just do music, maybe do something like Lipper or something like that. I mean, mum and dad were like, always give yourself, you know, a second option, like a bit of a plan B, which, like, I understand, and I was on board with at the time as well. I still really liked English, so I ended up doing English, history and music at A-level. But I'm glad that I stuck down the music path. Definitely. But I get, obviously, 9-to-5 is a lot more secure, especially financially and things like that.
Course.
Whereas music, you could be really busy for a short amount of time and then not for a long amount of time. Or it's like being self-employed, really. It goes for any business, really. But yeah, I think because my mum and dad are both self-employed as well, they kind of get that side of having your own business and starting things up. Definitely, yeah.
Do you think your father being a musician has helped to ease the process of you being a musician?
Yeah, I think they've always been... My dad was more, like, constructive. Like, so he... Obviously, because he had this musical ear, he would know, when I was saying, like, when I started out, I was a terrible singer. And
was he the one that...
Yeah, he wouldn't lie to me.
Okay.
My mum would be like, oh my God, that was amazing. And my dad would be like, Amelia, that was not good. So it definitely pushed me. But
into the right direction.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously you need that support. I had like the same support from each side, like my mum's being like, oh my God, that was so good. Whereas my dad was more like, okay, you need to try this, you need to do this. So it helps to have both sides.
Kind of a mentoring thing in that stage.
Yeah, definitely. Because if I didn't have someone telling me, like, this needs to change,
sure,
then it's harder. But then if I didn't have my mum being like, you're still doing really well, then I maybe would have given up, because you feel, I don't know, I think if you feel like you're not good enough, you do need people in your life to be pushing you.
As you said, it's a combination between support, but at the same time putting you into the right direction.
Yeah.
It can be only one of them, because if it's only like supportive, you might go down on the wrong path.
Yeah.
Right? But even if it's the other way around, if it's only being like criticized, it's just gonna crush that person to the ground.
Yeah.
Right? So it's gotta be a combination, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Bit of both of them to put you in the right position and right path. I agree 100%. Have you released any songs so far?
Yeah, I have 3 out at the minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to name them? Yeah,
so the first one, so this has all been since this summer. So the first one was called All In. That was out in July.
All In.
The second one was 60s Love.
60s Love.
And then my most recent one, which I only released 3 weeks ago, was Moments Like This.
Okay, Moments Like This. Guys, I'm going to put the links down below in the description. Make sure you go there, click on them, and have a listen.
Oh, thank you.
Anytime. How do you write music? Like, do you write from your own personal experiences, or do you look at the world and see something and you write according to that?
A bit of a mixture, really. I mostly write from my own experience. Like, I think I was saying to you earlier on, I quite enjoy like the storytelling side of songwriting. So I try and pick either like an event or emotion or something to write about. But there are songs as well that I've written that have been, like you say, see the world. The second one I was talking about that I released, 60s Love, that's actually about my nan and granddad and like their love story. Sometimes I'll write about, I don't know, a book or a film. If I've got no inspiration in my own life, I'll turn to other things. So yeah, I've done that as well.
You want to write a song?
Yeah.
The inspiration is not coming to you. How do you make it happen?
Writer's block is definitely something that I feel like I go through phases of, I have loads of inspiration and I write quite a few songs in that time, and then there's just like a complete lull where it can be quite hard to write. So usually when I'm writing, like I said, I kind of have something in my head that I want to be writing about. So if something has happened or there's something I'm feeling, I'll usually write about that, and I usually have a bit of a lyrics idea and a melody first, and then I usually write with guitar, so then I'll put the guitar to that and then kind of build the song from there.
Okay.
But if I'm really struggling and I would just want to get something out, then like I said, I'm a big reader, I love books and things like that, so I might take a relationship out of a love story that I've read or something like that. I recently wrote one about normal people. I don't know if you've ever read or seen Normal People.
Wow, interesting.
But yeah, just because I feel like it's important to keep the creative flow going. I think it was Ed Sheeran who said you should write a song every day, and even if it's really terrible, at least you've got it out the way. So I kind of try and do that, just always be writing something. So
do you try to write one song every day?
I definitely don't get a whole song every day, but I'll try and either write something,
get one idea out there.
An idea, or refine something I've already written, just to keep it going.
That's actually a good challenge. If you want to be a songwriter, try to write at least an idea, because I think the more you write, the better obviously you become, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me, do you feel any kind of pressure from social media or music industry that you have to look in certain way, say certain things, or behave in certain way? And how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I would say so. I think everyone probably feels some sort of pressure, whether like even if you don't do music, there's definitely I think it comes under a few things like comparison. You mentioned like looking a certain way and things like that. It's very easy to see artists on social media who are like making it, and think, okay, what am I doing wrong compared to where they are, and why are they at the
comparison is a killer.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as soon as you start to fall into that, it's hard to get back out of it. But yeah, I definitely find that you'll be comparing yourself. And the pressure, not even just looking a certain way, but I think artists have a lot of, it's not just about the music anymore, it's definitely about your image and how you connect with people around you, and people want to feel like they know you before they want to listen to your music. And it can be quite hard to be that vulnerable online and on social media.
Of course. One of the things I've noticed, I think everybody does it, but I've noticed some artists don't do it. So obviously from the time that you start as a musician in this case to the time that they so-called make it, they're like maybe 10, 20 years or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the time that they make it, they start like deleting all the images for maybe like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever. I don't know. Obviously, it's a choice. And I assume that sometimes you have some kind of pressure from record labels.
Yeah, definitely.
Because when you're in that level, you're in a business and you're working with businessmen and women.
Yeah.
And you have to hit that criteria. You have to go with what they say, because ultimately the image that you're making is gonna work on their favor or against their favor. You know, it's a kind of an investment for them.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing, because at the end of the day it's a choice.
Yeah.
But it's good to see that contrast. That, oh, I started there, that like the video was so crappy, I was out of pitch.
Yeah.
But right now, after 20 years, I've made it, and I'm this great artist, and my shows are selling and stuff like that. I think it's good to be able to see that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you feel that you've done any sacrifices to get to where you are right now? Or do you even call them sacrifices?
I think like the music that, like the path I'm on at the minute, it's not easy, but it's what I want to be doing. Definitely. I think you kind of sacrifice there's a bit of an expectation of you do your 9 to 5 and then you come home and then you have your hobby in the evenings and then you go to bed and like you do it again the next day, and it can be quite, sometimes I look at other people, I look at my friends or people like that who are like, they've got it together, you know what I mean? And they're in this like lifestyle, and I'm kind of at home in the days writing music and things and then working evenings instead. And you can definitely feel like you're failing a bit when
I understand
you're not up and out most days, like Monday to Friday. But I do think that it will I've got to think that it will eventually pay off.
So how do you bring yourself and bring those thoughts back on track?
Yeah.
You think like that, oh, like my friend is making like a good money, or he's making or she's making good money because they're doing so-called 9 to 5 or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Right? How do you bring yourself back onto track?
Yeah, it's hard.
To say, no, this is what I want to do. I don't care.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. I think because, like I was saying, I was at uni, so I had the degree that was taking up so much of my time. And obviously no one questions how busy you are when you're doing a degree, because you're doing a degree. And then as soon as I graduated uni, it's a bit like, oh, okay, I'm not in education anymore. I feel like I'm not doing enough anymore. But I think to, like you were saying, to bring yourself back into knowing that you're on the right path, I think as soon as I start to do something that kind of shows a bit of success towards the end, I'm like, oh, okay, and I know that I'm doing the right thing. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe you should just trust yourself the whole way through. But it can be hard. And I think usually if I do a gig of, I don't know, original music and it goes down really well, then I'll know, like, okay, these past few weeks have definitely been worth it. But there are definitely times where I'm like, what am I doing? Definitely.
The thing with 9 to 5, when you work in a 9 to 5 job, you get the so-called reward weekly or monthly. But as a musician, you're doing an investment that your investment is going to pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
One of the techniques that I've learned from talking to the musicians that I've talked so far, that you have to reward yourself. So every little progress that you make yourself, give yourself a pat in the back, go out, and buy yourself nice clothes and celebrate. Doesn't matter how big or how small that achievement is, just reward yourself. It gives yourself a good feeling of, I am making progress. I think that's a good technique to use, to be fair.
Definitely.
If plan A doesn't work, do you have plan B?
I have an idea maybe of what a plan B would be.
What is it?
So I still want to stay in the music industry, definitely. But I would say, like I mentioned before, I was looking at maybe getting into social media, PR, something like that, where you're basically helping other emerging artists to become, like you say, like making it and branding them and things like that. And that was something I was really into at uni, and I'm still into now. So definitely do something like that. And I could obviously pursue that full time. But my hope at the minute is to be able to do that job and also be learning how to do that for myself and use that for my own career.
Of course.
But if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. So I find it quite hard to see like 10 years into the future. Definitely. I think I quite look at like what's coming next and what can I do to get from where I am now to like next week or a month later, because I know what the big picture is, like you were saying, like being an artist and having people like love your music and everything. That's obviously the big picture, but it's not as easy as jumping from here to there.
Sure. I want to know how your mind works. I want you to get us into your thought process. Why would you even put a plan B in place?
I think money is a big thing. And also it's, again, what we were talking about, that pressure of not wanting to just completely fail. So at least if the music, it's about like not putting everything into one thing. So if this like artist career doesn't go as I hope it will, then I do have another job that I'm qualified in to fall back on. But I like to think that I will always be writing songs, and like I said, this started off as a hobby, so I hope that this will always continue. It'll always be something I enjoy doing.
It wouldn't be the case of that you drop music completely?
I would like to think not, no, because it's like a massive part of my life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's just say you want to make a song and you want to work with somebody else, a producer, instrument player, co-writers. How do you find collaborators? Yeah,
so it's probably a little bit different for me now, but whilst I was doing it, obviously I was at uni, so I had all these people around me who work with. So my most recent song, Moments Like This, my best friend produced. So he's one of my friends from uni, and he's like a really amazing producer. His name's Phil Stewart, and he helped me with that. So obviously that was just more of a friendship connection. People playing on the tracks I recorded, they were all uni friends as well. Whereas now I found myself in the position of uni's ended and people have either moved back home, moved to different cities, and now I'm at a point where I need to start meeting new people and, like you say, start networking again. So I think social media is the first one.
Big thing,
reaching out.
Big thing.
Yeah, because it's, if you've never met someone before, it's a lot easier to reach out to someone than it would be to just walk up to someone randomly on the street, even though it's the same thing.
I assume that there is a bit of a social pressure. When you approach somebody online, it doesn't have as equal as a pressure that if you walk up to somebody on the street and, for example, tell them, let's just work together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you have a release strategy?
I've started to kind of build a bit more of a strategy now. I think when I first started, didn't really know much about what I was doing. It's a bit of trial and error, definitely, when you're first starting off. But I think now that I've had a couple of releases, you can kind of see what works and what doesn't. So my first thing is obviously, once the song's written, produced, mastered, once you've got that, I use DistroKid to release mine. Yeah.
As a distribution company.
Yeah, as my distribution. And I try and get that 6 weeks before the planned release date, at least. Because I don't know if you know about the Spotify playlist and things like that.
Sure.
I mean, not that always is the be-all and end-all getting on a Spotify playlist.
How do you get on the playlist?
Yeah, so with DistroKid, you upload your song, and then they have an option where you can just pitch yourself to Spotify.
Okay.
I'm yet to have something.
And you have to pay for it, right?
No, DistroKid, you pay £30 a year, I pay.
Okay.
But that keeps your music on there for life.
Okay.
So it's kind of your legacy stays on there.
Did you get a chance to get played on a playlist?
Not through the editorials, no. So you send a pitch to them. The thing with Spotify pitching, what I've kind of realised is that you kind of need to already have a bit of a following,
sure.
to keep the momentum going. So it's quite hard to start that ball rolling. But it's always worth pitching anyway. So I try and get it on 6 weeks before the release date.
Okay.
And then after that, it's just emailing people, as many people as you can, and asking them for playlist spots, interviews, things like featuring them in blogs, magazines, things like that. So I was reaching out to loads and loads of people. And you probably, for every 100 people you ask, you maybe get 10 who'll say yeah. But it's still 10 more than if you hadn't bothered to get in touch with people. BBC Introducing I do, so I've been played on BBC Introducing a few times.
How do you approach them and how do you get that radio spin?
Different radios, I've just emailed them directly, so literally just Google the radio station. I Google searched singer-songwriter radio stations or Liverpool radio stations, just so you know that it's something that they're more likely to play, I wouldn't message an R&B station when I'm not an R&B artist. You need to know who you're asking.
Sure.
And then I would just email them and say, I've listened to your station, I think I'd be a really good fit. I'm releasing this song. And then I give them a private link where they can listen to the song before anyone else. And that's usually a bit of an incentive.
Okay.
Because it's not out yet.
Yeah,
so you get to be one of the first to hear it. Let me know if you'd like to play it. And I've had a few responses from that. Hive Radio, which is a Manchester station. Amazing Radio was a global one. Mersey Radio. And then BBC Introducing, you have to go to them directly and they have a submit form that you speak to. And you basically, similar to the Spotify, you just pitch your song, you tell them a bit about you, why you wrote the song, what the song's about. And then Dave Monks, who does BBC Merseyside for Introducing, he kind of chooses from them who he wants to play.
Okay.
So he's played a couple of mine through that.
That's great. That's great. So what are some challenges that you faced as a musician or as an individual in your life?
Definitely the confidence side of things is a hard one.
How do you build your confidence back up to a level that you say, okay, I want to go on stage, I want to do this, I want to do this?
I think for me, obviously, being 13 when I first started, my first ever performance, which is not I wouldn't say I first started gigging at 13 or anything like that, because it was just the one-off. I'd probably do 1 or 2 a year with this school. But I think at that age, you're lacking in confidence anyway. It's hard to know who you are and what you want to do and everything. Sure. So I think it is something that comes with age. But in terms of performance, I started gigging more regularly in June 2021. So it's only been about 18 months that I've been doing this.
Okay.
As we came out of lockdown. So I literally just messaged a pub and asked them if I could play, and they said yeah. And it just built up from there. And I think the more you do something, the more confident you are.
100%.
But I've definitely found that the more prepared you feel, the more confident you feel.
Sure, preparation is the key.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. If you've not rehearsed much, you're going to be terrified going on for a gig. Whereas if you know that you've practiced this set list inside out,
done this 1,000 times.
You're going to be fine. So you've just got to give yourself that preparation. But I think confidence is something that it comes and goes all the time, and it's just about you've got to big yourself up, you've got to be your own biggest fan, definitely. But we all have, you were saying before, you've got that inner critic, and not listening to that inner critic can be quite hard, definitely. But it's something that if you know that this is what you want to do, you've got to kind of outweigh the potential pitfalls with what could potentially go right. And I think that's what gives you that confidence. Going
back to the subject of social media, how do you use social media in your advantage? But at the same time, how do you keep a distance so you're not caught up into scrolling all the time?
It's quite hard. I think for advantage, obviously there's a few things, people who never would know who you are and what your music is, they will only find you through social media. So marketing your music is obviously the best way.
Very important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it can be quite hard to get the balance between marketing, like I was saying before, you kind of have to market yourself as well.
Of course.
But there is obviously certain things like being vulnerable online and things like that. You've got to let people in a little bit and let people feel as if they know the person behind the song. And I think TikTok's a great one for that at the minute, because it's more videos that have been created there and then and you're posting. Whereas Instagram has become quite a filtered highlight reel. Whereas TikTok seems to be a bit more real than Instagram at the minute. But I think Instagram is the hardest to be caught up in, like especially the comparison cycle and things, because like I say, it's people's highlights and you're looking at what they're doing. So I think, honestly, I mean, I literally now have like phone limits set on my social media. So I have like an hour on Instagram or things like that. And obviously sometimes you just turn it off, because if you're, I don't know, if you're making a TikTok video or you're looking for things that are trending in your niche, you're going to be on social media for a while and you are going to be scrolling, and obviously you just get caught up scrolling in rubbish as well. We're not just gonna like always be using it for work. Like I use it for pleasure and work as well, but it can be hard to find that like you were saying, the distinction between just sitting there mindlessly scrolling compared to actually using it for good and for an advantage.
We'll be back. Amelia, tell me, do you think talent exists, or is it just purely work ethic?
I think it exists, definitely. I think people can have a natural talent for something. I teach singing lessons, so I feel like you have people who come in their first lesson who you can just tell naturally can sing or have an ability musically, and some who don't. But I've had people who like didn't initially have that ability, and a couple of years down the line of work for it. I think I was one of those people. Like I wasn't talented when I first started, but that like drive to want to be able to do something made me like end up with that talent. But I don't think people who are naturally talented work less than others. I think like if you still put that work in, you can always be better. You can't just be like born with a talent and then not have to work at it, because you'll just kind of plateau, you'll stay the same. Of course. Yeah.
So talent exists?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
I would say so.
Because my personal perspective is I don't think talent exists. I think sometimes they start earlier in life. For example, they start when they're 5.
Yeah.
They live in a musical family which music is being played. So naturally they get a sense of a good pitch or a good rhythm. And when they become 15, it becomes the so-called talent. But it's only because they had those privileges.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Earlier on in life. So I don't really think talent exists.
Yeah. It's like the environment that you're in, definitely.
100%.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I
might be wrong. I might be wrong.
No, I think there's different ways of looking at it, definitely.
Sure.
But like I said, I think anyone who works at something can always get better. So it doesn't matter like what position you start at, you can end up at the same position as somebody else if you work hard. Yeah, sure.
So take me into a creation process. Before you told me that you find the vibe, you start writing on it, or you play an instrument along, see what happens. So when you have that idea, that initial idea, what do you do next?
Yeah, so the initial idea is usually like lyrics or melody, something like that. I play guitar, that's like my main instrument, like to accompany myself with. So it's always an acoustic song to start off with. So then I have to think of transferring it from that to something like production based. So it's hard because I think when you've written something, especially a lot of the songs that I started to release recently were things I'd written like a few years ago maybe, or something like that. So because that's all I've ever heard it as is vocals and guitar, it can be quite hard to hear a finished product, which is why I think working with other people is really helpful. So like my most recent release, when I was working with my friend on that, he's produced the song and he's got like strings in there and things like that maybe initially I wouldn't have even thought of, but in the end product sounds really, really great. But I think you've got to kind of trust other people with your things. You can't be really precious about your songs when you work and collaborating with people. Obviously, it's your song, and if there's something that you really don't want in there, you do have that say, and you should be able to feel like you can tell people what you do and don't want. But you do kind of have to trust people that they know what they're doing, and you've got to know where your own strengths are.
Sure.
So when I was first starting, I was trying to do everything. And I think you've got to kind of accept that you're not good at everything. Yeah, it's exhausting. It takes too much time, and you're not good at everything. And like, you can be okay at something, and that's fine, but there are people who are going to be better because that's their craft and that's what they do. And I think working with other people and realising that that's not a bad thing as well. Because at first I felt like if I was giving my music to other people, it's not mine anymore, and it's almost like lazy that I'm not writing it myself, I'm not producing it myself, I'm not playing everything. But that's just not the case.
Look at even the people who are in the top of the chart.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you just look at the credit list, the list goes on and on. There are 4 or 5 writers, there are 4 or 5 producers, there are a few mixing engineers, there are a lot of people involved in the production. If they're in that level, which they could do it alone, they could do it alone. They're doing it, they're collaborating with others. Why would I not do it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And like you say, it's just too tiring to try and do it all on your own. Especially when you're at the beginning stages, you're not actually getting any financial anything back from it that way, or even with like people even listening to the song as many as you hope would be listening to it. If you're doing all of that, then the actual release process just feels quite deflating when you've done all that work and got nothing from it. Whereas when you're working with other people, you have time to work on other things. And then you're bringing in money that you can then pay people to do the things that you're not as great at. So I do think it's important to, I'd say like delegating is quite important. It's definitely.
So what do you do after you have the idea? You, for example, give it to a producer. Do you go record your vocal in your own house with your own equipment, or you go to a studio?
I was at uni, so we had an SSL studio at uni, which was obviously amazing to use.
Of course.
So while I was at uni, I tried to record as much as possible. So everything that I'd written, I was just recording vocals for and things, even if I've not done anything with it yet, just because I had that facility. Now I've written like more songs recently that obviously I don't have the access to those studios anymore. So with some new releases that I'm looking at working on now, I've kind of got to make a decision. Do I want to record at home or hire studios and things like that? And obviously Liverpool has got loads of places
100%
that you can go to. So it's kind of finding what's the best fit for me. I think with like where I am, like at home, I live with my family still. And I've got like quite a busy house, do you know what I mean? So recording vocals at home wouldn't be as easy as it would be if I just took a few hours out, went to a studio. So I do think it'd be worth it for me to go to a studio. I usually have a bit of a guide track recorded, so that'll likely be like vocal and guitar. So I've got something to layer up then. So I'll sing, I usually do vocals last, I think.
Vocal last, okay.
Yeah, usually in the last few that I've done, when I was recording with other instruments. So if I'll do like drums and bass first, and then I'd have the guitarist and then the keys in, and then myself.
Okay.
Whereas if I'm working with, like on my most recent releases, more electronic based instruments, so that was done through like Logic instruments and things like that. We'd recorded the vocals in the studio, and then we'd worked around the vocal, well, Phil had worked around the vocal with different instruments he was importing into that then. So yeah, I do think depending on the song, the process is different. I can't say I followed the exact same thing because it doesn't always work.
Sure.
And I think you've got to be quite flexible
100%.
With your creative process, otherwise you get a bit stuck and you can end up kind of repeating the same things over and over again.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, so it's important to keep it fresh.
So what do you do after, for example, the song is ready for mixing? Do you give it to somebody else to mix? Do you mix it yourself? Do you give it to somebody else to master?
So the first 2 releases I had, I'd done myself, so I produced and mixed those myself, and they were songs that I'd done as part of my dissertation at uni.
Okay.
So they were ones I'd obviously already been working on anyway, so I was like quite proud of the end result with those. And then I gave them to All Silk Mastering House.
Okay.
We were like great masterers, sent them, and they did a great job mastering them. With Moments Like This, which was the most recent one, Phil produced and mixed that, and then it was given to All Silk Mastering House again.
Okay.
Which I think that process has worked really well for me, so that's what I'm aiming to do for my next releases. Because like we were saying, it was just too tiring to try and do everything myself. So yeah, I think I'll definitely stick with that with my next few releases.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Do you think there is anything wrong with the music industry that you wish that it was in another way or it was different?
I think there's a few things, like I think the industry is very different now to how it used to be. I know a lot of artists I see on social media, they complain that they have to like do all of the social media and everything. That's something that I quite enjoy personally, but I do understand that some people just want it to be about the music. And I do think that there's a bit of a misconception that the music doesn't matter anymore, because I still think it does. But I think streaming has changed a lot of things 100%. Now. I'm still someone who listens to... I'm quite an albums person. Like I have a lot of artists that I really like, and I listen to all of their music. But I think playlisting has changed a lot of that. But I think in a good way for some things, because there are artists that if I put a playlist on, there are artists I wouldn't have picked to listen to. And I get to hear one song through a playlist. I don't know, say you've got like a gym playlist on or something, and then you hear this artist, and then I'll click on them, and then they've got all these songs that I never would have known about without the playlist. And so I do think it's for artists' advantages in some ways.
I agree.
But then the other side of it is when you're a more emerging artist, it's a lot harder to get on that pedestal. So the bigger artists are obviously doing really well from the way Spotify and Apple Music is, whereas it can be a lot harder for newer artists to get to that stage.
Have you got any side hustle, or music is the only and main thing that you do?
So for work at the minute, I teach singing lessons. So obviously it's still music based. But yeah, I teach, and I really enjoy it. I do. It's so the vocal coach that I had that I was talking about earlier on, I now work for her business.
Right, sounds good.
So she like employed me on an apprenticeship basis. So after I'd done my grades and I wasn't doing lessons anymore, I started to teach. So I do that. I gig as well, which is like my weekends and things. But yeah, it's still, at the minute, I'm lucky that everything I'm doing is music based. I've had other jobs in the past where I worked in Boots over Christmas, on the tills, things like that.
You have to bring the money in some way at some point when you're making any money from music, right? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, like I'm lucky. I would say I still live at home. I still live with my parents. I mean, I'm still only 21. So I can imagine it's a lot harder for the other artists who are, you know, more like they've got their own homes, so like their rents and things like that. It's a lot harder to sustain a music career. So I can imagine that having another business alongside music is kind of something that people just have to do. I'm hoping to try and have everything music based if I'm lucky.
Sure.
I was quite lucky to get the apprenticeship straight from whilst I was at uni. But yeah, I think if not, I would definitely be doing some kind of retail job on the side of what I'm doing now. Because gigs are great, but they're only a short amount of the week. They're only a couple of the weekends or whatever. So it's hard to make that your whole income. I mean, it's great if you can, but it's quite hard to get that going.
I agree. So if you need a vocal coach, the links are down below. Get in touch with her and drop her a DM and say, I need a vocal coach. That's it.
Yeah.
Easy as that.
Easy as that.
If you weren't a musician, who would you be? I
would probably have gone into writing.
That was a very fast answer.
Yeah.
So how you thought about it before?
Well, it's only because outside of music, like my biggest passion has always been reading. When I was younger, I always wanted to be an author. So I think that just kind of transitioned from writing books to like writing songs. So I've always been into songwriting, but writing has always been something, even since I was little. Like I used to be reading like my mum and dad my stories when I was like 6. I always liked to write. But I think what put me off was it seems like quite a lonely thing to do. Like just writing books by yourself. But yeah, I think that's the only other thing I can see myself doing. But I've never ever wanted to do like I've always wanted to do something creative. I've never wanted to do like a 9 to 5 or an office space or anything like that. So yeah, without music, I don't really know what I would have done. Because that kind of it was quite a natural progression to go from, like I was saying, something I enjoyed doing, and it's just carried on like that. But yeah, I wouldn't know what to do without music. I don't know what I would have done.
How do you look after your physical and mental body?
Yeah, I like to go to the gym. I definitely I was saying before, it's a bit of like, it's an hour out of your day or however many times you go. That kind of is just your own time, and I do really enjoy that. So I do like strength training and stuff in the gym. I do a spin class, and I like Pilates and yoga, things like that.
Do you do it regularly, like 3-4 times a week, or?
I do I'll say I'll go to the gym, like weights and stuff. I'll probably do that 3 times a week. Spinners once a week. And I try and do 1 Pilates at home a week. So I do try and do a fair bit of exercise.
Do you think that had any kind of an effect on your mental status?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that if I've not gone to the gym or like worked out for a certain amount of time, I feel like you get very in your own head and things, where going to the gym is quite a nice release. I like to go for walks as well. I think that clears your head a lot. But I'm really into mindset and things like that. So I do meditate and do your affirmations or things like that. I read a lot of self-help and self-development books, which I'm really interested in. But yeah, I do think it's important for everyone to have some kind of like mental and physical like practices that they do to look after themselves. Because I think they go hand in hand, and I think it's been a while for everyone to realise that your mental health takes a toll on your physical health.
100%.
But I think now we're all quite aware that if we're not looking after ourselves mentally, then we'll get sick and things like that. So I do think it's important, definitely.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
In this part, I usually ask everyone to make a prediction. What do you think is the next step of consuming music would be? How do you think we're going to consume music?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like because vinyl's kind of made a bit of a comeback more recently.
It's a bit of a loop.
Yeah, I don't know whether we'll go full circle, but obviously we're always going to have this current technology, and it's only going to get better.
Of course.
So I think it's quite exciting to imagine what we might be able to do. I mean, I know that like Lady Gaga wants to do concerts in space, and she wants to be the first concert on the moon.
On the moon?
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it can't really come back though.
No. Yeah.
That would be a one-off thing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. But I feel like streaming services kind of have given, like we were saying, it gives people the opportunity to listen to a vast amount of music, and it's wherever you want it. So you've always got music with you. You don't have to wait till you get home to put a vinyl on, and where it's just constantly with us now. So I think that will always be there. We'll always have music like in our pockets. Definitely.
Some kind of streaming.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you heard about metaverse?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how because Meta, it's everything now, isn't it? I mean, like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, it's all Meta. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's very much it's going to be linked to social media. I mean, even more now, like you can put your songs on Instagram stories and things like that. So I do think it's become more of a social experience. Like people know what you're listening to, and it's
especially with VRs. I think there is 1 or 2 artists that already done it. That they done a virtual concert.
Okay.
That you put it just VR, buy a ticket, and it's just obviously. I think it works out for the artist a lot cheaper because all the equipment and everything that you see is virtual, and maybe it's the artist behind the green screen or something that do the. But I think it makes it more accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
Comparing to like before, because we were listening to cassettes, as you said, we had to wait to go home to be able to use the vinyl
Yeah.
to be able to listen to music, but nowadays we have it in our pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But it would make the concerts more accessible in terms of if you're in an office and you have an hour and a half to spare, you can just put the VR on and be in the concert. I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm someone, I love concerts, like actually going. So I'm someone who loves like
that's what it is.
gig.
That's what it is. Like a concert is about the vibe that you feel everything.
And it's like being surrounded by people who are all feeling
100%.
the same thing. It's quite it's a social experience, whereas I feel like if you were just like sitting in your bedroom, it's not quite as fun.
Yeah.
Maybe that goes away once you've got the headset on and maybe just forget that you're at home.
I have no idea.
No, maybe.
I have no idea. If you want to promise yourself 3 things in front of the camera that you want to start doing or do it after you walk out of here in this podcast, what would they be?
I think music goal wise, it would definitely be to be releasing like very consistently for 2023. That's something I want. I want to have quite a few like singles under my belt and things like that. So that'd be the first one, that I would promise myself to be releasing a fair bit of music next year. Paying a bit more attention to like what we were talking about before, the mindset thing. That's definitely something I feel like I go through phases with. I can be really good at practicing my meditation and being, you know, like positive mindset, and then I feel like that goes downhill and then picks it back up. So trying to be more, I think consistency is a big thing, definitely, with that. That's another thing. And spending, I'd say, more time with like the people around me, because I feel like busyness is quite a big thing. I always want to be busy, and sometimes that doesn't actually mean you're being productive. You just feel like you have to be doing things. Sure. So I feel like spending less time worrying about how busy I look. Be more present, definitely.
More present,
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
If you had a chance to choose one song per year, which was a great song in terms of quality, but comparing to a situation that you could release one album a year, quality-wise might not be that great, but the message is obviously the message that you want to deliver to your audience. Which one would you choose? I
think quality is really important, because I think you've got to really believe in what you're releasing, and it's got to mean something to you. I think with albums, they tend to be more successful when you're already a successful artist. So singles are usually more helpful to kind of get your name out there and get more of a following. But I think personally I would probably choose quality over quantity. Yeah.
But don't you think that quality comes in time? So for example, if you had one quality song out there, in 10 years you gotta have 10 songs.
Yeah.
But if you have 10 albums during that time, obviously halfway, maybe in a few years, you have gained a massive experience because you already put like 40, 50 songs out there.
Yeah, and your quality is only going
to... And your quality is going to be maybe even over the top.
Yeah, it will. It'll improve.
At that point. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I think with albums as well, like I was saying before, I'm quite an albums person. I like that. I mean, one of my favourite artists is Taylor Swift. And I like that her songs seem to have been put in an order on purpose throughout her albums, rather than just shuffling them. It kind of tells a story. And I feel like that's a lovely quality that you can have if you're releasing quite a few things at a time in an album or even an EP.
Yeah.
Because you're telling, people are getting an insight into a lot of your life, whereas one song is just a short moment that you're singing about. But I wouldn't want an album of 10 like really terrible songs. Just for the sake of having an album out. Yeah. So
something decent, but
Yeah.
So would you compromise to go to the other side and have an album of decent songs?
Yeah, I suppose so. I know what you're saying. Yeah, I suppose that would be, like you say, you're only going to get better with time, and
of course,
every release is going to be even better than the last one.
I think one of the things that really kills the creativity and progress is perfectionism.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm only going to get better during time. There's no one time that I'm going to be the best.
Yeah,
I can be the best of me in the current time, but that best of me is always going to be better tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But obviously that's my perception of it. 3 things that you're grateful for in your life.
Definitely like people I love, like family, friends, boyfriend, everything I've got with me there. That's like really important to me. So like I think connections would be one. My health is, I think, something that we take for granted a lot.
Of course.
The fact that we can just like get up and go out. A lot of people can't even do that. So grateful for that. And I would say at the minute I'm grateful that I'm actually like in a position where I can be doing music. I'm grateful for, obviously I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm grateful that I'm on my way to being there. Sure. Because a lot of people don't have the opportunities that I've been given. So of course, I'm definitely grateful for that.
Amelia, last words.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much to everyone who has listened to this and anyone who's been listening to my music. It means a lot that my music has like reached you and it's something that you want to listen to. So thank you.
Thanks for coming to our podcast. Thank you very much. Everybody, Amelia, make sure you go on description and click on the links down below. Make sure you go to her social media and follow her and listen to her music and let us know what you think. And we'll be coming back for more episodes. Thank you
very much. Thank you.